Greetings, YouTube world. We are KRT Life with the Y. I'm your brother Reza, and this is your beautiful sister Kat. And today's vlog is all about a transportation crisis.
Alright, so we meant to do this video for almost over a year at this point. We wanted to talk about Atlanta bike lanes and the road safety. Atlanta is really rapidly growing right now. Like, you can see a bunch of cranes behind us. There's a lot more construction going on the opposite side of us, and that leads to flooding the streets with more and more cars that people moving into the city. So we're about to get on the road and show you guys what we mean by transportation crisis in Atlanta. So the way that Atlanta was built is drastically lacking public transport. It's very limited. It exists, but very limited. So if you live in a city like us or Midtown, downtown, you're trying to look for alternative ways to commute to work, especially if your commute just, a couple of miles down the street, which leads you using your bicycles, your e-scooters, walking, whatever that might be. And with increased amount of cars on the road and other people looking for alternative ways to commute to work, in the last few years, it actually increased the fatalities on the road.
Yeah.
You want to talk about the statistics?
So, like, in the last 2 or 3 months, there has been 3 actual e-scooter incidents that resulted in fatalities. There's been numerous hit and runs. There was a cyclist that was actually run over going to Atlanta United game, and then there was another cyclist recently that was actually killed on the way to work at Starbucks, just riding down the road. So it's very, very common these days to hear about people getting hit or run over by cars and pedestrian / cyclist / motorist incidents.
That even happens in the bike lane. Just recently, I want to say about 5 or 6 weeks ago, I've read on the news that this lady was riding in the bike lane through the neighborhood in Buckhead, and she was hit and the guy drove off. So she wasn't dead, but she was pretty bad injured. She was an elderly lady, and she was in the bike lane.
Yeah, pretty bad. So so my personal commute is only 2 miles, and even that little 2 miles is a terrifying 2 miles, and we're about to show you why. I'm gonna show you an example of why my 2-mile commute can be so dangerous. Right now we are on the corner of 14th and Spring Street in front of the Whole Foods. And let's say hypothetically my commute was from this Whole Foods to the Piedmont Park. We're gonna take you on a ride and show y'all how dangerous this simple commute can be. And this is less than 2 miles. This might be 1.5 miles.
So let's see how this bike lane looking.
All right, so now you can see all the debris, the sewer stuff. So this is the bike lane that leads away from Piedmont Park if you're going towards Peachtree Street and Midtown area,
and not one sign on it. Even when it started, there was not even a bicycle painted
bike lane indicator.
Yes,
yeah.
It's just a separate lane.
So most people probably won't even know what that was.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. If you're not
There's
into
a sign,
this,
it says share the road. But check this out. Okay, so you see how fast we're at the park.
and then it says bike lane ends, and then you cross the street. And okay, so now what? You carry it on the sidewalk?
Like, we haven't even got to Peachtree Street and the bike lane's already gone. So what are people supposed to do?
Yeah, this is absolutely ridiculous. That bike lane was there literally for 1 block.
1 block.
1 block. And it ended. And I'm like, okay, so you ended it, why? Why can't it go up to the main road?
At least up to Peachtree. And then there's no bike lanes on Peachtree, which I kind of understand because Peachtree is a kind of busy street. But there's no reason that Spring Street shouldn't have a bike lane. That
West Peachtree.
West
Put
Peachtree
it on West
shouldn't have a
Peachtree.
bike lane. Like,
give it at least one of the main roads an option to ride.
So here are some people riding scooters right here on Crescent Ave. And this is another area where there was a recent fatality. And there's literally people riding their scooters on the sidewalk, which they're not supposed to be doing, but there's no bike lanes for them to ride in. So what do they expect people to do? So now we're gonna make a right onto Peachtree, and then we're gonna go to Piedmont Park.
Alright, so we're on the corner of Monroe and the 10th Street. So as we showed you before, along the Piedmont Park, there is 2 bike lanes going each direction, and they kind of like separated by the little signs, so to speak. But once you get to the actual Monroe, you can cross on your bike lane and go on the Beltline. But if you're trying to go on Monroe either direction, there's absolutely no bike lanes. And the streets on Monroe are very, very narrow on top of all that. So, very dangerous situation over here.
All right, so now we're on the corner of Howell Mill and 14th in the heart of the beautiful and prestigious West Midtown. But if you were a cyclist or taking a scooter or on a bike, how would you get here to other points of interest, like for instance Midtown? Because not Midtown, but Atlantic Station, because this is like a really like residential area now. But like Atlantic Station is like the shopping district. So let's see what it takes to get from here to Midtown. I mean, not Midtown. I don't like you saying Midtown. Here to Atlantic Station. Now, I just wanted to point out real quick that there's no bike lanes in either direction. There's no bike lanes up and down Howell Mill, and there's no bike lanes going down 14th Street towards Atlantic Station. The easiest way to get here from where we're literally standing right now would be to go straight down 14th Street. Unfortunately, 14th Street is so narrow and there's no lanes. That's probably the most dangerous way, so we're gonna take an alternative route that's a little bit better, but probably still as dangerous. So right now we're on the corner of Northside and 17th. There are a lot of accidents here. This is a high-speed area, and there's literally like no bike lanes, a couple of crosswalks, and a couple of pieces of sidewalk that are just put in this area, but the sidewalks don't lead to anything, which makes them inaccessible for most people. And we know what else we didn't talk about? And I saw this the other day, and it was like one of the saddest things I've ever seen. There was a guy in a wheelchair going down the street, and there was no sidewalk. So this guy was in the road on a wheelchair going down the street because there's no sidewalks in Atlanta. Like, I couldn't, like, yeah,
so
it was
just
crazy.
like that, we affect not only cyclists, but the people who actually, that's the only way they can move around.
All right, so we've shown y'all some really good examples of how treacherous and dangerous it can be to commute around Atlanta. So what's the solution? Well, the solution is actually this right here, what we're sitting on right now. This is one of the few stretches of actual walkable and rideable, safe bike lanes in Atlanta that's well marked, well lit, separated from automobiles, and it's the only really good place to really cycle in Atlanta that's really you feel safe.
Yeah, and it's only 1 mile long. So if you guys want to do a 10-mile ride, you're just gonna have to go in circles.
Back and back around 4 to 10 times. And this is on Georgia Tech's campus. And actually, when we were in Iceland, we were talking off camera. These type of bike lanes were literally everywhere in Iceland. And Iceland is a place where it's extremely cold. The weather's harsh. And you can't really use something like this to its full extent all the time year round. Whereas in Atlanta, you can pretty much use this full year round. So what's being done to bring more of this to Atlanta, I guess, is what we're getting at.
So we were reading, do research, for this video, and we read one of the articles where they were talking about allocation of funds for safety of the roads and building the bike lanes, maintaining the roads and all other stuff. And even though they didn't disclose the actual amount of funds that allocated for these particular repairs or projects, they disclosed that $19 million of the funds that were allocated for the road safety were used to build $24 million pedestrian bridge leading to Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Yeah. So money that could have gone to building bike paths and pedestrian walkways and stuff around the entire downtown area of the city of Atlanta instead went to one specific bridge so that football fans can get into the stadium over Northside Drive.
And another thing, when they were talking about allocation of funds, as we showed you before, we have these random sidewalks that lead absolutely nowhere. They're unusable. There's nothing you can do with them. Why are we spending money on that? Why can't we use those funds that are pretty much just trashed and use it for something to build something like this?
That people can actually use that connect points of interest. And I think that's the main issue with the way that Atlanta is set up right now for alternative forms of transportation. None of the points of interest between where people live and where people want to go are interconnected in a way that people can travel there by foot or by bicycle or by scooter safely. And that's what leads to the collision, play on words, I guess that's kind of bad play on words, but the collision between automobiles and pedestrians and people using alternative means of transportation is really sad and tragic that this is happening and it's not being addressed.
And then we're talking about nowadays for how bad Atlanta traffic is and how many health issues people have and how we're trying to save the planet with recycling and all this. Building bike lanes would actually benefit all those areas that I just mentioned, because not only it's going to relieve the traffic, it's going to put less cars on the road, more people are going to start exercising. We actually will be on the way to save the planet. So why aren't we doing anything about it?
It's a win-win scenario for everyone. All it takes is some action from our political leaders to, the people who are actually allocating the money to take the necessary action to do so.
Yeah, so there's going to be less talk but more action. That's what needs to happen. One thing I wanted to say, so the article that I brought up earlier, they also mentioned how other cities actually implemented this, and they did narrow some of the roads just a little bit to fit in the bike lane, to properly mark it. And they were trying to do that in Atlanta, but in Atlanta people start talking like, well, I don't want you to do it in my neighborhood, this is gonna bring more traffic and stuff. But actually in all those cities that it was implemented and done properly, they said after proper research that the affection on the traffic was really marginal, because now all those people who were sitting in the car because there's no other way to get there in that bike lane. So we should be doing the same, and instead of these people saying no to this, they should actually be supportive.
Yeah. So hopefully the mentality of people in Atlanta starts to change and people become more open to alternative means of transportation. I guess that's the end of this vlog.
Yep.
I hope it helps y'all figure out what's going on out here. We are KRT Life, KRT Life with the Y. Like, subscribe, comment, all that cool stuff. Get out there, ride your bike, get some walking in, exercise, be healthy, be happy.
Yep. Enjoy the life.
Enjoy the life.